Welcome back.
We are here for your Week 6 waiver wire pickups. Some Week 5 recap. We're going to do just a little bit of everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly again this week. Glad to have you guys in, and let's get to it.
Absolutely.
All right, let's start with the injuries. We have Jonathan Taylor.
That we do.
You guys think that will play or won't play?
I'm actually leaning towards he won't play next week. I think that they'll give him one more. They want him for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I had him as will play just because the offense is pretty bad without him. Going into the won't play, I think personally Nyheim Hines won't play, just the whole concussion thing. They're going to be pretty touch and go with that kind of stuff, especially with the whole Tua issue that's been going on. Some other ones with might play, Tyreek Hill is in a boot right now. I haven't seen very much about like what kind of injuries he's got, but he might play. I can't expect that they're going to, have him not play. Mac Jones is another questionable one. And then don't know, some weird ones. We have James Conner and Keenan Allen. Eli, I think you were the one who put James Conner on there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so he got injured, I think, midway through the game. He went out. He did not play very much coming back. I know Eno Benjamin took over the majority of the rest of the work. I have not heard anything, updates as of right now. So we don't know if he's going to play or not. But we'll talk about that more a little bit later.
And then we have Keenan Allen on here because every week he's a big question mark, and
well, it's getting up there in age, right? You get to that point where also you're on the injury report every week, whether you need it or not. By the way, I was just looking it up. Jonathan Taylor, the Colts are optimistic that he will be back Week 6, according to them. So, I mean, that sounds like good news if you do have him. So that's nice.
I would expect him to play too.
Should be back next week from the sounds of it.
Right. Anything on Tyreek Hill? Do you see anything else?
No, I have not.
Okay, I think
boot. That's what that was.
When I checked about an hour ago, that was pretty much all that was on there. Yeah. I don't expect him to be too big on kind of rushing through it. It might be he just maybe was sore or something like that. I don't really know. And then we have a really, really big one, which I think is going to transition us perfectly into our waiver wire pickups, and that's Rashad Penny with a broken leg. It's going to take 4 months.
Yep.
It's a 4-month recovery. Major implications because, kind of a fight in that backfield. There's, they've been doing the 3 running backs. Rashad Penny's been getting most of the work, but without him, it looks like Kenneth Walker is going to be the big guy. And it's actually my first running back waiver wire pickup. But if we want to do ahead the kind of check to see 50% or above.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into waiver wire pickup. Talk about the running backs here to begin with. We always want to kind of let you know of some guys that are above 50% that you just want to check. Never know. Sometimes you don't think that they would be available, but they might be. So running backs, I think the one big one that we have listed here to check is Raheem Mostert. I know he just recently came on in the last couple of weeks, so definitely I think he's at around 65% owned in Yahoo. Definitely want to check for to see if he's available out there. Otherwise, we're going to jump in and talk about the ones that are available that are going to be some big pickups this week.
I'd like to start off with Kenneth Walker. This is like, I know Ethan's been waiting for this situation all year. He's been predicting it. Seattle's been talking a lot. Anybody who's a Seattle fan has been talking about how Penny essentially hasn't played an entire season since he got drafted. He looked really good at the end of the season last year, but he only played 7 games. And the question on Penny wasn't necessarily, is he going to be good? It's how long is he going to be good because he gets hurt. And it looks like we only made it to week 5. Kenneth Walker is owned in 52% of leagues. He's a little more heavy. It'd be a little harder to get, but I think that he's the waiver wire pickup of the week. I think if this is a guy that you're going to spend a lot of money on, it definitely needs to be Kenneth Walker. Yeah. Seattle wants to get him more involved in the passing game. They want to, say that this guy, he's a little more durable. I know he was injured the first week or so. But Seattle really likes this guy, and Pete Carroll's really jazzed about this kind of, player. So I think he definitely, in my opinion, I saw Kenneth Wade on the waiver wire, I'd probably spend about 50% of my budget. I know that's a lot, but I think he's going to be one of those dudes this year that he could just take over and he could just have huge numbers. He could be really a huge fantasy asset. So I'd go big on him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. I was just gonna say. I mean, I was as high on him as I was Breece Hall. And Breece Hall, look at what he's able to do, in a situation that's probably rougher than what Kenneth Walker is walking into in Seattle. I think that he's a heck of a talent, and like you said, I've been waiting for this. I'm excited. I'd trade for him if you don't have him. At least send out a couple trades. I think he's gonna blow up real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, he showed it on the field after Penny went out. He had some really explosive runs out there. I do feel really bad for Rashard Penny, just to put it out there real quick before we move on, that he actually looked, again, really explosive end of last year. Even this year, he just had a 140-yard game, I think it was last week, I believe. But he's looked really good, so him to have a broken leg really sucks. But Kenneth Walker is going to be a huge pickup. So what would you say, Dakota, since he's your guy, what are you putting out there for some fab bids? What percentages are you doing?
A lot. And again, people are going to, like I said earlier, people are going to think I'm crazy, but 50%. I really think that if he's available, I'm going to go as much as I can on him because he's essentially going to become an RB1 pretty quickly. And I think he's going to thrive in that role. And so if I could spend as much as I possibly can to make sure that I get him, I'm almost less concerned with taking maybe a few hits later on the season because I don't have as much fab left over.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd say 50. I'd even really go up to 70, to be honest, if you are one of those teams that just don't have an RB2 at all and just blow it out. And just because the worst he's probably going to be, in my opinion, is an RB2. And he's got a lot more upside than that. So at least that's what I'd probably shoot for.
Yeah, I tend to spend a little less, so I'd probably stick to like 35. But that's just me spending less in general on fab. I don't like to go too crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with Kenneth Walker, the player. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's going to get a lot more pass work than people realize too. So it's worth noting too. But yeah,
Absolutely.
and the reason for our Zoom call, by the way, is that I'm a little sick. So if you hear me coughing or reaching for my water here, I apologize. But
That's all right. So I think I think we can all agree. We got some more to go through and everything, but there is a big tier break. I think the number one, Dakota's for sure. Kenneth Walker that he talked about is going to be our biggest one. I'll jump in and talk a little bit about my first one here. I wanted to bring up as another potential option to look at. I talked to him about a couple weeks ago, but Benjamin was a good stash a couple weeks ago. Well, now it actually has happened. James Conner, as we talked about earlier, is injured. We don't know his status for next week. And when James Conner did go out, Benjamin did get majority of the work for the Cardinals offense. He looks good. He's explosive. He's a great pass catcher. Although they've had some really bad offensive starts in the first half of games, it seems like second half they turn it on, and they are an explosive offense if they get it together. Especially as they get more people back, like DeAndre Hopkins, as he comes back, there'll be some more opportunities there for some offense and some scoring. So I think he is definitely one to look out there. He's only 11% owned, so definitely one of the top ones to look at. And the fab would kind of depend on James Conner injury, in my opinion. If it's going to be a little bit more long term, a little bit more fab. If not, maybe a little bit lower. But if he's out next week, maybe 10 to 15%. If it's longer, about 20. If it's just a handcuff, I go 5% or something like that, in my opinion. What are you guys' thoughts?
I agree. I think the Benjamin is kind of like the Kirkland brand Alexander Madison with what's going on in Minnesota. And like James Conner gets injured a lot. When he's injured, he kind of sits around and you don't know if he's going to play. They kind of tend to take it a little more easy on him. So Benjamin might not just be a guy that you want to pick up. He might want to be somebody that even if James Conner goes back in and is starting again, that you want to put on your bench and save till later.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it all depends on what James Conner injury is. We're filming this on Monday night, so we have not heard yet. The news is not out, but that's going to make a big difference. Right now, even as a backup, I think 5% is unrealistic. I don't know how much higher I'd go over 10 or 15, though, even if Connor's out for the season. Unless if you're desperate for a running back, then go get one. But hopefully people will be so distracted by Kenneth Walker that they won't spend too much on either.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say maybe, again, it depends on your running back situation. If I really need a guy, I might spend like 10 to 15%. But if I'm not really hurting for a running back, kind of like what Ethan said, 5% tops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then let's go into my guy here, Mike Boone, only 36% owned. He, had 11 points in PPR last week, and got a decent amount of touches, about 12. So, despite the Broncos' offense being pretty pedestrian, Boone did okay without a touchdown. Still had 11 points, so that's good. The biggest thing here is that I think that he's going to grow into that role. Like what happens when you have a young running back right behind a veteran that isn't proven. Like Javonte was proven. That's why he was getting more of the touches. I think Boone will slowly gather that over the next few weeks here. So get him while he's still cheap. 5%, 7%, something like that. I think you could throw out in most leagues and snag him, especially with some of these other injuries people will be hunting for. So.
And he's I like Mike Boone too. He's got a little less experience than Melvin Gordon, but it also brings into question the whole thing with Melvin Gordon and Nathaniel Hackett. He still kind of seems like he's in the doghouse. He's maybe not getting as much work from the fumble. And something that gets brought up all the time is how long do you stay on that coach's bad list until you finally come off?
Yeah, I think he's a great pickup, especially since I think it's going to be a split. I think it's been pretty close, like a 60-30 or 60-40 split, probably something like that with Mike Boone, and he's looked explosive. I don't know if you remember back when he was with Minnesota, he had some preseason work that really stood out there too. So he's definitely an explosive back. Without a Melvin Gordon injury, I don't think he's going to be like more than a low end or high end RB3, low end RB2 maybe, if that's the case. But I think he's good to have on the bench. Definitely should be rostered more than 36%.
Agreed. Cool. Should we talk
Dakota
a little bit
my one next? Yeah.
Your guy who is a fun one, I think.
I think he's a fun one, but I think he's a little bit of a slow hitter as opposed to Kenneth Walker and some of these other guys. Mainly because the guy that he's sitting behind is completely fine. And I'm talking about Rachaad White. He's owned in 46% of leagues. He's getting more play time, which is nice. His snap count has gone up. It's about 38 to 39% the last 2 weeks, which is pretty good for a rookie. The only real thing that kind of like it becomes a hard sell is he's sitting behind Leonard Fournette, and he's really going to rely on a touchdown in order to be relevant, just because Leonard Fournette gets so much of that work. One thing that could definitely skyrocket his value is if Leonard Fournette gets hurt, which he is known to do. It's just right now I think he looks fine, and I don't think it really looks like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah.
So it might be worth picking up and stashing.
Yeah, I had him on my list last week too, and he's a great stash. Is a great call, Dakota. I think he's very explosive, really talented rookie. And Lenny does get all the work, but he has gotten hurt in the past. Cheeseburger Lenny finally had a great week this week for the first time too. So it just shows that, and I think that offense itself is getting better with Chris Godwin being back and Tom Brady finally looking a little bit like Tom. So.
Because he got rid of his family.
Well, that helps absolutely. I mean, I'd be a lot better worker if I got divorced too. I completely understand.
It's the Aaron Rodgers method, you gotta completely disown your family and for fame and
it's like selling your soul, but you're just divorcing. You know what I mean? Like you gotta do something like that. But yeah, the reason why he's such a high value handcuff, not only the talent, but just the offense that he's in. Some of these guys that we talk about. For handcuffs, if they are not an explosive offense or the offense that can really score, yes, they're great to have as like a plug and play RB2 if they get hurt. But Rachaad White, if Lenny gets hurt, he'd be an RB1. He'd probably get most of the work. So I think he's a really important stash.
For sure.
I budget if I had to spend anything, I would say because he's not really in a situation where there's a really big run on him, and it's still. He's still kind of sitting out there and still kind of building up his workload. I would say you could probably snag him for a little cheaper. You could probably get him for 10% of your fab, and always say situation dictates, but if I
Yeah.
maybe needed a guy and stashed him, I would spend 10% for him.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
a little
go.
less.
Yeah, a little less because he's the backup, and I don't think a lot of people would be scrambling over, like Ethan said, with all
No.
these other running backs out there. So I would actually, especially if somebody has him on the bench that doesn't know what they have, try to trade for him too.
Yeah.
Because he's got a little bit of snap work, but if somebody's desperate for some starters, you could try to work a trade in there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that brings us up to Eli's next one, which I think these two are fun to talk about. Similar kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about the first one. First off, Austin Eckler, just want to do a quick shout out because I'm going to talk about his backup is one of my pickups here, Joshua Kelly. But Austin Eckler has came through the last couple of weeks, finally turned it around for those owners. So congratulations for sticking it out. He is super talented. But I did want to mention Joshua Kelly. He's only rostered in 1% of leagues, which seems criminally low. This last week, he really made it clear that he is the number one handcuff behind Eckler. He had 10 carries, 49 yards, got in the end zone, had 3 catches for 44 yards and a score as well. Again, I wouldn't chase the points. You're not going to get that every week. Like that's not going to happen. But if Austin Eckler does go down, this is one of the handcuffs that you really want to have because that offense has a lot of talent, especially as hopefully Keenan Allen does come back. Herbert's really talented. You could have somebody that could produce a lot of points and get a lot of work, especially in the receiving game if you have to replace Eckler. So I think he's a really good, again, low end bid. Couple fab, maybe pick him up after the fact, but he should definitely be rostered. Not at 1%. I think the fantasy community is not following suit here, not doing very well with him only being at 1%. So
yeah, for sure. Definitely a good handcuff to hold and why not?
I think the reason why is because Austin Eckler is just such a beast, and people just kind of
don't think he's gonna get hurt.
Yeah, but crazy things have happened.
Anybody can get hurt, and he's small. He's like Mighty Mouse. He's small and big, but he can get hurt. It just takes one roll of the ankle. So.
And then my last one here is another guy. This is someone that I wouldn't maybe do an no-bid or whatever else, but there's not a lot of people touching Caleb Huntley for some reason. He's only at 14% owned. Now, he had 8 touches to Algiers 13, but he had a better yards per carry. He had the longest run of the day. It looked good out there. I think that this is kind of a situation where the Falcons just need to do something on offense pretty much every game because they've had their struggles just winning games. And whoever's the hot hand they're going to go with, and that could easily be Huntley. So everyone else is bidding up Algier. Go ahead and sneak him in there.
Yeah, good little stash for sure. Do we know when? If we didn't talk about this, when Cordell's going to come back, Patterson?
I'm actually looking for that right now.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. One second.
That's a great question. So I thought he was out for a little while still. Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was like 3 to 4 weeks. So I think
he went on the IR. Algier, it's 4, isn't it?
Yeah, Algier and Huntley are both going to have great roles in those weeks. It just when he comes back, it kind of makes it a little bit more muddy.
Yeah, so he can't return until week 9 at the earliest. So
okay, that's good to know. Okay,
and there's no update at this point. It's just that he's still in the IR.
Yeah.
No, great to know. Okay.
So yeah, you at least have him until week 9, so you at least get a few weeks out of him. As a stash, and if he ends up being the guy during that time, you could even carve out more of a role for himself as well. So you never know.
And here's the deal: anybody that has a pulse and touches the ball, you want on your fantasy roster because it's besides the studs, it gets pretty bare pretty quick. So these running back especially wide receivers we'll talk about here in a sec, but running back gets super thin. So make sure you can stash some of these guys. In my opinion, not to get into roster construction, but drop that your 5th wide receiver and add one of these running backs, right? Like don't keep five wide receivers on your team when you could have a high value handcuff that could be really valuable for you. Before we move on, because I know we want to, Brian Robinson, I just wanted to mention just for the fact that I think he is still just coming off injury, so he may be available. He's that check 50%, but also just a shout out. He came back this week, got a lot of touches, and the guy got shot. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That
Did he get shot twice?
yeah, like
Not two
like
separate occasions, but two separate bullets. So
yeah,
I
like
mean, still, that's pretty impressive.
yeah, he didn't die, and then now he's playing football. Like that's pretty cool. So I want to throw that out there.
Back quick.
yeah, good for him.
So all right, we want to jump into the
Ready?
wide receivers.
Yeah. I would like to go first again. If that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna crash through both of mine. My big one this week is Khalil Shakir. 7% of leagues. He's a rookie. Crazy thing for me is how many snaps he's seeing. He's on the field 70% of the time. He's got 5 targets with 3 receptions in this last game. And that's even with Gabe Davis healthy and Stephon Diggs there. So clearly he's making some sort of wave on that offense, and Josh Allen just wants to throw the ball. So I think he's definitely somebody who I would consider picking up. I wouldn't spend very much money on him. I'd probably spend 2 to 5%, depending on what the need is. You might even be able to pick him up for nothing because he's just owned in so few of leagues. But I think the real big thing for me is his yards per target. He's got 11.5 and 15 yards per target in the last 2 games. That's pretty good. So I think that's a pretty significant stat.
Yeah, well, he's one of my favorite prospects. What was at the beginning of the year, even though he's a 5th round pick. I mean, this dude is explosive with the ball in his hands. He really was over there at Boise State. And it was fun to watch on the field. And then he's playing the slot role for Josh Allen, and we've talked about this all year long because it's important. Josh Allen loves to throw the ball to the slot. So whoever's in that role, and if he's there for 70% of those snaps, I mean, that's a big deal, and you should go snag him.
No, I agree. I think he looked really well. He looked explosive when I saw him catch the ball. He had some great plays down the sideline. Actually, he had one catch that was like a 25-yard catch that he just seemed really explosive on. The only thing I want to put a little bit of hesitation on that makes me I still want to add him, I just don't want to spend that much, is the fact we don't know what's going to go on with Isaiah McKenzie. And they have shown that with Jameson Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie, they actually were like almost exactly 50% slot. They both took like 50% of the snaps when they were both healthy. So I don't know if they're going to try to do that, or it's like 50-50 with Isaiah and Shakir, or does Shakir just take over? If he takes over, then absolutely, I think he's going to be an absolute home run. But it's just a matter of what are they going to do? They really liked Isaiah, so I don't know if they're just going to push him completely to the side. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I think he's definitely worth a pickup, just in case if he can get the full gamut of snaps, he's going to be really good.
I think you can get him for essentially nothing. So,
yeah, I completely agree.
Nothing risked, nothing gained. But on this one, it definitely might be something gained. So,
absolutely, 100%. So,
go
ahead. I forgot you're going to do 2. Go ahead.
My next one is just I talked about him a little bit last week, but I think he deserves a little bit more of a look. Is Josh Reynolds? 36% of leagues he's owned, so it's kind of getting to the point where it's he's getting enough notoriety. He was in on 91% of snaps last week, 10 targets, which is a lot. I would say for the last 4 weeks, he's definitely in the wide receiver 2, low wide receiver 1 quality, simply from the fact that he's been consistent. He's been averaging about 15 points for the last 4 weeks, and so for somebody who's only owned in less than 50% of leagues, I think that's a pretty significant thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The whole offense, I'm going to talk about that later, but Lions' offense did not look good, but he did. I mean, he was like one of the sole beneficiaries of that whole thing. So I think he definitely is on the radar for sure.
Jared Goff's got to throw the ball. And I mean, I think Ethan has brought this up. We do have Jameson Williams waiting in the wings for him to be fully healed. Once he's off the IR and he's back to gaming, it might change Josh Reynolds' impact on the game. But
true. I got a lot of Jameson Williams stock in redraft and dynasty, so I'm hoping that is the case. But in the meantime, I think Reynolds would be a good plug and play for sure.
I agree.
What percentage of leagues is Jameson Williams owned in?
About to look it up. It is.
It's pretty. That's a good quote.
9% of. Oh no! That's a different person.
31%.
What?
That's
45.
Well, I'll make that my second guy then over the one I have. We can just kind of mention him right now, but yeah, I'll just put it out there. Jameson Williams, if he's still out there, he should be coming back right off of IR. I think this is going to be, I think next week.
They have a bye next
so
week, but it'll be the week
after
after.
the bye.
Yeah, so really you could risk it and not pick him up over the bye because maybe not a lot of people are going to pick him up, but I'd be safe and just pick him up if you had an IR spot already. I don't know why you haven't put him in there. That's where he's stationed right now on most of my teams, is in the IR spot. But if you don't, I think he's worth a bench spot for 2 weeks to be able to see what he has. I mean, he was one of the top picks in this NFL draft. Even with the injury, they knew that he was going to be injured most of the year, and he was still picked very high based off of the talent. So I think this Lions team needs another spark, needs another weapon besides Reynolds is really good, but Brown has been injured. He's really good too, but I think they need another weapon out there, and if he can hit, I think it's gonna be really big.
I think they're just so banged up with injuries because DJ Chark is he's wide receiver too. He's also been hurt a lot recently. So I would say that he's probably going to have a similar impact to what Olave has had. I think that's the category that I grade these two wide receivers in. That when he comes into the game, I think he's going to be that good.
I think he's a similar deep threat. I do worry that I think Jameis throws the ball down the field a ton, which is part of the reason why Olave is doing so well. So I do worry that how much Jared Goff throws the ball down the field a little bit, but
he stretches. I mean, with Reynolds, he throws it. He's had some deep throws. I don't think he has a big issue with that.
Good. No, and I just hadn't really looked into it, but yeah. So I mean, that'd be the big concern. He's not as much of a possession receiver as I think people think he is. Although he could end up being a Jalen Waddle, who everyone thought was going to be a deep threat, and looks like a possession receiver now. But he'll be interesting. I mean, I think he's got really good upside for sure. So.
I agree. Absolutely.
Cool.
You want me to just go into mine? Yeah, I'll go to mine real quick. So I know the offense itself has not looked great. That's the understatement of the century. But the pieces that I want to highlight here on the Colts offense is their number 2 wide receiver, Alex Pierce, who's a rookie as well. These rookies are everywhere and taking over. He's only 8% rostered right now. He keeps going up in targets. The last 3 weeks, he had 5 targets, he had 6 targets, and then this last week he had 9 targets. So if these trends continue, right? He's the second option right now for Matt Ryan, and they were desperate for a second option. They had Pittman, who's been really peppered with targets, but people are really keening on him, so they needed somebody to step up. Alex has actually stepped up in the last few weeks. And he's had the highest snap count of the season this last week against the Denver Broncos. Again, I know the game. Don't blame the game. I know you probably weren't paying attention because your eyes are bleeding when you're watching the Denver Broncos versus the Colts. But he had a good game. He had some great catches out there, and had a high snap percentage, and had 9 targets. So I definitely think he's worth rostering. I think the Colts. They're going to still be bad, and I think they're still going to have to throw, even though Matt Ryan doesn't have a lot of time. But and because they have to throw, Alec Pierce is going to get a lot of targets, which if you're in half or full PPR, is going to be really good.
And just in case you were worried, I'm going to talk about the Colts. Trust me, we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Perfect.
And Pearson's combine was crazy good. You're talking about a guy who, I mean, he's like 6'5". He's got long arms. He ran a pretty good 40 time. I think it was low 4.4s. And he ran a decent 3-cone as well, actually, for a size 2. And yeah, I mean, he's a really, really interesting prospect who can go up over the top of tiny corners and just bully them.
Yeah,
he's really good at that. So he's.
I think Eli. Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's once again. I keep saying interesting process. It's interesting to me. This wide receiver class is crazy, as we were finding out. It was really fun to kind of scout this offseason. But yeah, I think he's another one that quite frankly looked really good, and is showing it on the NFL field to no one's surprise.
I think Eli kind of hit the nail on the head when he said that they're looking for somebody to step up. That kind of seems like to be the big thing across most NFL teams is you really have this clear, definitive wide receiver 1, and there's really kind of wide receiver 3s floating around. Nobody's really the clear wide receiver 2. And these rookies are just coming in and they're stepping into the game, and they're willing to take charge and they're willing to be out there on the field. And I think that's definitely what we're seeing with these big, these high value rookies this season.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about it in Indy, you have Pittman, and then you have Pierce, and like
Paris
not
Campbell.
a lot else.
Yeah.
Paris,
No.
yeah, and you don't want to throw the ball
That's
to
what I'm
Paris Campbell.
saying.
You just don't.
Yeah, the corpse of Paris Campbell was basically running on the field.
Exactly.
He's been and they really have a problem. I mean, without Jonathan Taylor there, they're really down somebody else who can make an impact on the offense. They're really just screaming for somebody to help them out.
They have that, and then the biggest tight ends ever to walk the earth, and that's about it.
Yeah.
The gargantuans.
The gargantuans.
The giant.
And, the funny thing about that is Pierce and Pittman are not small for wide receivers either. Pierce is a little lean, but he's still strong I mean, every time he goes up for the ball, he looks really strong. And Pittman is huge.
Yeah, but then they look like tiny little baby boys next to 6'6" and 6'8" tight ends. So
yeah, it's wild. They're building bulk over there in Indy.
No doubt. They should start a basketball team.
Yeah, they'd probably be better at that than football.
yeah, right.
This is by far the best basketball team on a football field in the NFL right now.
You don't need somebody to block for you in basketball, which is really good for Matt Ryan, so I think he should switch sports.
Maybe that's the secret, is at the end of their careers, they just switch to basketball. They can play a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit less rough.
Yeah. That's hilarious. You want to do your second one? Because I can do.
The second one is just I'm going to throw it out there. I know this is a little crazy, going a little bit deeper, but the Giants are a little bit more desperate right now. And for wide receiver help, obviously Sterling Shepard tore his ACL, terrible. He was like their leading wide receiver before that, and then unfortunately the rookie. Wan'Dale Robinson has not been on the field, been injured, and then also Tony Cardarius, who day by day seems just a little bit more outlandish, is the best word to put it. And then he also can't see the field because he's injured as well. They're all out, so it does leave you down to a few players. And the one that stood out this week was Darius Slayton. He has shown some talent in the past. Really good field stretcher, but also has a good possession as well. He had 7 targets and 6 catches in this game. He only had a 54% snap rate, so that's not exactly great. But I think he is one of the more talented ones on the field. Because other than that, they have a lot of no names right now on the wide receiver field. So we'll see once the rookie Wan'Dale comes back, and maybe Tony finally gets on the playing field. I wanted to put him out there just in case you're desperate, more of a deeper play, but
for sure,
something to look at if you wanted to get if they're out, he's going to get another 5 to 6 targets and probably catches, so it'd be good to throw him in.
I think Danny Dimes, I really don't want to talk about him, but I think Danny Dimes might be the big problem with a lot of these, the fact that their lead wide receiver had 79 yards. So I just, he's a really good player. He's really athletic. He's actually big for a wide receiver. So if they get him more involved in the passing game, I think that he could be, he might be a really deep sleeper on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a wide receiver, no bid probably on Slayton is what I would do for sure. But
yeah, absolutely.
You need someone who's going to get targets. Once again, at the end of the day,
if you need a body, Darius Slayton is your man.
Yeah.
You need somebody to breathe and stand in the spot.
Absolutely. He's there for you.
And if you need the greatest playmaker in NFL history, then look at me for the next guy coming up here. The overhyped Mecole Hardman that I've been talking about for way too long now. You guys know I love him. 5th-year breakout, Mecole Hardman. No, I mean, he played really well tonight, for one. And he finally looked like he was healthy off of that ankle. He's had an ankle injury that happened in week 2 or 3, and he has not been the same since. I think it happened actually towards the end of the game in week 2. And so he's been barely on the field the 2 weeks after. He finally got a full slew of snaps and was actually being targeted tonight and looked normal. He did limp off at one point again with an ankle problem towards the end of the night here. But assuming that he's okay, he's only owned in 22% of leagues. When he's been healthy, his numbers are actually pretty good. He's averaging about 10 points a game, which I'm not saying is crazy, but if you're picking up a wide receiver for free off the waiver wire, which is what Hardman will be, 10 points a week is not bad. And I do think he still has that upside if he is healthy. He looks like, quite frankly, the best wide receivers on the Chiefs. I know y'all disagree with me on that. But, he started off with, in his first week, he had 11 points. And this week, he had 12. And every other week, he's been hurt, so we're not going to count those. Which is my way of saying I don't like him, so I'm going to eliminate him. But I do think that Mecole Hardman is worth picking up and rostering for free, of course, but I don't think it's actually a bad play. Tell me I'm wrong, boys. I'm ready to hear it.
I think at this point, it's just everybody's rolling the dice on who the Chiefs wide receiver is going to be, and I think that Mecole Hardman has just as good of a case to be the wide receiver one out of everybody else.
Yeah,
nobody really looks
Travis
to
Kelce. Obviously, everyone knows he's the real wide receiver.
obviously does not count.
I'm gonna put that out there.
Tied he has the new record for the most touchdowns by a single receiver in a Monday Night Football game.
Yep.
I've been saying this all year, and I'll probably keep saying it. I think that everybody's going to have good weeks in that offense besides Travis Kelce. So you'll have MVS week. You'll have maybe a Hardman week that gets 3 catches for 110 yards because he's ridiculously fast and breaks one off. But then you'll have the 2 targets for 1 catch and 15 yards. And so those type of players that you can't really handle and have it on. So the only one that has consistency outside of Travis Kelce in that offense, in my opinion, obviously very humble opinion, is Juju, and his floor is a little bit lower too. I mean, he's consistent, but it's like
tonight, so I don't know how consistent he is.
Well, if you want 3 or 4 catches for usually about 30 to 40 yards, he's your man.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that'll win you championships in fantasy football.
It's better than one target, 1 catch for 4 yards.
Here's what I'll say: if there is a wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs that is yet to break out, that has a chance to break out, there's only 2 guys that we haven't seen be there in full. The first one is Mecole Hardman because he's been hurt, and the second one is Sky Moore because he's not on the field.
Right, absolutely. And I had Sky Moore last week for my my stash. I'll take an L on that one. He did not see the field very much tonight at all. And
I think he was on the field twice.
Yeah, he got like 1 ball, I think, for like 10 yards. So that's definitely an L. At this point, at least for me, I am just hands off on all Kansas City people, other than Travis Kelce and obviously Mahomes. So just my opinion. But
no, I'll take a chance. I'll take a shot again on Hardman and see what's going to happen. And if I see Sky Moore's snap count go up, then I would take a look at that as well, for sure.
That's really good. I like to put that out there too. Just keep an eye. I think it's safe to say to drop Sky Moore, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but just keep an eye on his snap count. I think is the biggest thing. If you see a big jump up next week, then I think he should be on the pickups. So.
Then this last guy, we're going deep again here because there just isn't a lot of news.
Not much,
in wide receiver world this week. But I think it's really interesting. Tyquan Thornton was back. He played his first game, this week, and was, to not exactly thunderous applause when he came onto the field. But he's just coming back. Huh?
Did they boo him?
No. I'm just saying that nothing happened. Like he had
gotcha.
He had 2 targets. He had 3 targets, 15 catches, and 7 yards.
I thought they booed him. Like, damn, that's brutal, man. You come back from an injury. And
No.
Okay. Sorry, my bad.
No, but nothing happened, right? And so we say this about rookies all the time. This is the first time we've seen Tyquan Thornton on the field. The Patriots have their backup quarterback in, which should go back to Mac Jones next week because he was already participating in practice this week. So this will be the first time you'll see Mac Jones and Tyquan Thornton on the same field together. And it will be the second week of Tyquan Thornton. And we talked about this when people were panicking about Breece Hall week 1, right? And Drake London week 1 and some of these other players. We said, hey, these rookies, their first game isn't really their first game, right? They're breaking into the offense or whatever. Garrett Wilson didn't come on until week 3 or 4. And it's like that. That's what happens. They have to be eased in. So if you're looking for a deep stash at wide receiver, Tyquan Thornton is 6'3". He ran the fastest 40 time of all these awesome, crazy fast wide receivers in this draft class. So he's big, he's fast, he's a true field stretcher, and he's going to be really interesting to watch and at least keep an eye on him as he comes back and start to see what happens here. But he's a prospect I really liked, so just worth kind of mentioning. And if you're in desperate need, put a no bid in for Tyquan Thornton. You'll get him. He's owned in 1% of leagues, so he's yours.
Yeah, it's great stash, I think, just to bring up because I actually just was looking it up a little bit, and he ran a pass route on 64% of the dropbacks, actually. So, I mean, that's pretty good to start off with coming in. So, definitely a lot of talent, and they spent a high draft pick on him, so they probably want to get him involved at least a little, or at least try to. We'll see how he deals with it, but
yeah, and you look at that offense, and there's just not a lot of people that can truly stretch the field. And say what you want about Tyquan Thornton, but this dude can stretch the field. I mean, he is blazing fast. And in my opinion, he's got pretty good hands as well. And pretty good ball skills. So he's interesting. He's going to be fun to watch.
yeah, that's a good one. All right, we wanted to go through this like we did with the running backs real quick, and then we could jump on to our tight end and QB streamers, if that's okay. Talk about the people that are above 50%, but just check, because you never know, and you'll be a happy person if they are available on there. So I'll run through kind of the first three here, and then somebody can jump on the last couple. George Pickens, which is, I think, Ethan's one of Ethan's favorite wide receivers here. I think he's around 60% owned around there, but he is definitely a great pickup. Jacoby Myers, another one, 60%, I believe, in there. And Devin Duvernay are three just to check, see if they're available. Great pickups, great starts, if they're there.
Yeah, I think that's actually all that we have for the little wide receiver streamers, but those are all obviously great ones, especially the George Pickens. I really like that.
Yeah, if George Pickens is available in your league, go out of your way to get him. Bid what you have to. Like, do your thing.
Mm-hmm. That connection with Kenny Pickett's is pretty real. So.
Yeah.
Well, it might be the only real thing on that field right now.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. It was not. That was not pretty.
That was not a pretty game. This is mine's not really a streamer. I actually have like I might get on my soapbox for a little bit. Mine is Geno Smith, man, and I talked about him last week. He was in my good, and I think it's time that we stop saying that Geno Smith is a streamer. I think he's worth starting now. He's owned in 40% of leagues, but as of week 5, he's QB number 5 in standard. In most leagues, he's QB number 5, and I'll tell you, if I had a guy who was ranked number 5 at their position and he was available in over 50% of leagues, I'd be going out of my way to get him. I don't think that this is somebody who you can continue to stream. Obviously, he's finally figured out his connection with Will Dissly, Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, he had some great notes to Lockett this week.
DK Metcalf, he's finally found the way to make a connection with him. So at this point, I think with Kenneth Walker getting more involved in the passing game, I think he's definitely going to have a higher potential. I think at this point, Smith definitely could replace some of those quarterbacks that aren't necessarily performing. Russell Wilson. On your
There's way too much pride in my soul for me to drop Russell Wilson for Geno Smith. I want you to know that that'll never happen, no matter how logical it is.
I actually I'm facing that in a lot of leagues, and
at this point, I think it's a good pick. I think it's time to say, hey, we spent a lot of money on this guy, but I
might do it, but I'm gonna throw up while I do it.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine, but you can still do it.
Okay.
No, people forget Geno Smith was a first-round draft pick, a highly touted quarterback. And you know what? He's had a really rough career and has looked really bad, but for whatever reason, he seems to have figured it out.
Carroll.
Yeah,
that's the secret.
He's besides one game, and he's looked really good. Some of the passes he made last week were
nuts,
on the money, like right in the basket of Lockett a few times for those touchdowns. I mean, got to give it to him. He's been playing out of his mind.
Yes.
So we'll see if it can continue, but he's definitely. You're right. I mean, I was looking. He's number 4 right now in fantasy scoring. So for QBs,
he's definitely worth. I mean, he's in. I'm looking at right now in sleeper, 39%. If there was a guy who was ranked number 4, number 5 at their position, and they were available in a vast majority, I would really be trying to get that guy. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
at this point we can consider, Geno Smith might be somebody who we pick up and swap for.
Yeah, and his schedule is not too terrible either. I mean, he's got Arizona, the Chargers, which they're down Bosa and they have some injuries. The Giants have looked better, and then Arizona again. So I mean, definitely a doable schedule for the next few weeks. Not like a gauntlet or anything either. So.
And even in Tampa Bay, Week 10 before they go into the bye, I mean, most of these games that these have been in high scoring games. So, or these teams have been in. So that's really where Geno Smith, hey, if we're going to be down, we're going to have to throw the ball. I think that's where he excels.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so not really a streamer, I know, but I still got to make my case for my guy.
No, you want to talk about the quarterbacks that you can pick up?
No,
you can stream him this week and keep him for next week.
He's below or he's available still in a lot of leagues, and he's been playing out of his mind, so I think he's has to be brought up. I'll bring up mine, Carson Wentz, which I know we've talked about it before. He's had the kind of couple of explosive weeks, and then had kind of back-to-back lower weeks, and then this week was kind of middle of the road. My recommendation to you is to pick him up and start him, especially if you have a bye this week. But close your eyes because he's guaranteed to make a couple throws a game where you're like, I don't know how you're an NFL starting quarterback or what like how you got here, but keep just tossing the ball downfield. You'll hit some of these really talented wide receivers because he's made some. He lost them the game last week. We'll just say that based off of that throw, it was terrible. But for fantasy football, that doesn't matter as much. It's negative 2 points as long as he's putting up those touchdowns and the yards. And for the right matchups, he's been doing that. So I think he's got Chicago this week. Not a tough matchup. It's on Thursday nights, so he has a chance to put out a little bit. I think he's going to have a pretty good week.
I agree, and I think his offensive strategy is just throw the ball, and he's got so many talented wide receivers that he's gonna get it.
It's kind of crazy the talent on that team. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it because I know we got to get going, but Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Dobson when he the rookie Dotson when he comes back, and then the new one this week, we didn't even talk about in our waiver wire pickups. Oh my gosh, he's another rookie.
Brown.
Am I crazy here? Yeah.
Okay.
Is it Dimitri? Is that I forget?
No, it's I just pulled it up. I was gonna say it wrong, so I didn't want to say it. I knew it was Brown. Brown. Yeah, he had that great long catch, and he looked pretty good. So I just want to mention. I don't think he's a high pickup, but just the weapons he has is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he was a rookie last year, not this year.
Yeah.
Oh, he was. Okay, so second year. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because St. Brown, remember he went through, started listing off those names of who was drafted before him, and that was one of the players that was drafted before him.
Yeah.
Yep. So, anyways,
Ethan, I think yours is the little second part of yours is a really good point. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers play the Atlanta Falcons defense. This is for my streamer. Guess what? I just want to start people who are playing Atlanta in general. You've got Debo over there, obviously Ayuk. Jimmy's got some great people to throw to. He's usually a middling fantasy quarterback, but I will take my chances on him having a big game against a team that, quite frankly, has a quite porous defense and gets into shootouts on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, they just traded Deion Jones. Do you see that too, the linebacker?
Mm-hmm. I did see that.
Yeah, where did he go?
Browns.
Interesting.
Weird, right? But yeah.
Browns trying to make a late season run here when they get Watson back. Is that the
I think so. Yeah, exactly. So not only are they bad, they traded one of their best or defensive players. So that's probably a great call for Jimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even know that. So that's an additional bonus. Who's by far the best player in their defense is gone. So yeah, I would definitely start Jimmy G and Yeah, you never know, but because they did have a weird game script this week. I thought the Bucks versus them was going to be more of a shootout than it was, but most of the time this year they've been in shootouts. So
Yeah, Jimmy's always. I think he's always like been like a very low end QB1, and I think you'll get that. And with Atlanta matchup, you might even get a little extra. So I think it's a good play.
Cool.
Austin, Nicole, you want to start us off with tight ends? Who we got this week?
I have another. I mean, I guess he's picking up more, but I would say he's probably not going to be very available. Hayden Hurst. I don't know if I would necessarily consider this a stream either, because over the last 2 weeks he's got double digits and he's got at least one tight end in each of those games. So I think at this point he's definitely making that connection with Joe Burrow. It might have been the fact that T. Higgins wasn't really involved in the offense that might have taken some of those targets and put them on Hayden Hurst. But I like him. I think he's a good stream for next week if you're looking for somebody who maybe had Conklin. Conklin didn't necessarily pan out. And then another one who I would keep an eye on is Cade Otton, rookie for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Looks like he's finally made it to the field. He had 10 points this week, and there's a lot of hype around him, especially with Tom Brady kind of missing that tight end role that he really has gotten to depend on so much. So if Cade Otton can fill that hole and he can kind of make things work, I think he has a really high ceiling. He's pretty much available in every league. You don't even have to put a bid in for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hurst is a great pickup just in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
Excluding, he's tight end 11 and he missed a game. I mean, so
yeah.
Like, look, I think he's just good in general, but also a good player to stream for next week. So.
You really see this, and not to go down a philosophical way, but like with quarterbacks that don't have any time, like that are just getting killed back there, like as soon as they snap the ball. Their tight ends get targeted a lot, and I think that's Joe Burrow's case right now. And Hurst is still talented. Don't get me wrong. I think he actually has some great talent. But you see the same thing with the Rams offense with
Tyler
Higbee.
Yep.
He's been just getting targeted like crazy because he's just getting killed. Just interesting kind of thing to look for. That is, if you have a bad offensive line, man, look for the tight end.
The tight end that plays with him.
Yep, exactly.
That's a good point.
I'll talk about the man of the week, actually.
For the second time this year.
Second time this year. So he's a little bit more controversial in a few different ways. I'm talking about, of course, Taysom Hill. He's currently 30% rostered. The beauty of him is that he can be used under the tight end position, as he does technically play that on the field, but he plays basically everywhere. If you want him to run and go get you something from the grocery store, he'll do that in the middle of the game. He'll play quarterback. He'll play tight end. He'll do whatever you need. But yeah, that's why he's very interesting here. I mean, as obviously just as a normal tight end, he does get a little bit of work, but it's not much. But the fact that you can get what he did this week, getting a touchdown through the air, rushing the ball for a score, and be able to get all those yards. I think it's a cheat code. Now, I will say that he's definitely volatile. What tight ends that aren't basically Travis Kelce aren't, because sometimes he does get kind of game scripted out. But when he does hit, he hits big. And one of the biggest things that I really want to mention for him, he gets a lot of goal line work. So there are a lot of packages that they have him take the snap and goal line, because he's such a big player and he can punch it in really easily. So if you have somebody that gets a lot of goal line work and you can put him at your tight end position, it's pretty good.
I think the analysts, so they how they have the little blurb for sleeper for each player. I think that sums it up really well. His floor isn't very safe, but his position where it seems no one's floor is safe. If you want to take a swing for the fences, Hill is a home run waiting to happen. Like he's either 0 or he's going to be 30,000 points. Like it's
yeah.
Really no in between.
I mean, his stat lines are 15, 1, 0, 8, 35.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and
that's what you're gonna get.
If that was if that was your tight end for this year, I mean, you're crushing it. If you didn't draft a tight end early and you drafted Taysom Hill, and you've just been starting him every week.
You got to look at it like how many tight ends currently have put up a 35-point week, or have put up over 30 or over 25. Like there's a very, very small list, and he's one of them. So
I mean, he's tight end 6 on the year.
yep, just based off of that, and like I said, it doesn't take much. If you go over 30 points as tight end, you're like they almost write you in like permanently on the top 5. Like you're already in. I'm just gonna put you up here.
It's totally fine. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then mine is going to be Evan Ingram here. Who Evan Ingram, despite the naysayers out there, I actually think he's a pretty good wide receiver. I don't know that he's a very good tight end, and that he doesn't block super well. But in the offense that they're running in Jacksonville, I do think that they're going to have him running a lot of routes and being looked at a lot more often, especially when Trevor Lawrence is under pressure. And so I think he's a good stream, coming up, and quite frankly, just a good pickup to have in general. So
yeah,
I agree. I think Ethan's been waiting for this moment for a really long time.
Yeah,
I have always been a fan of Evan Ingram, and it's finally paying off. Although I was a big fan of Eric Ebron the same way for like a long time.
But he paid off when he was with the Colts. He was like the tight end who had the most touchdowns in that 1 year, and then they were like, "Yeah, we're going to go back to Jack Doyle."
If you are a super athletic tight end with your initials being EE, just so you know, I'm a fan. I'm already in.
He's all on it. Yeah, he's on board.
For Eric Ebron and Evan Ingram. But no, Ebron never really paid out if you don't count those few games here and there. But I do think that Ingram will get a bigger role than people think. So
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah, definitely.
And without further ado, I think we're into the fun one. But I think this week we should start, instead of going the traditional, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think we should start with the ugly, because I think the ugly is some of the more interesting stuff. We can go backwards and we can finish off with some nice, good stuff.
I like
positivity.
Yeah. Anybody want to go first?
I will.
Yeah.
This just makes me sad.
Let's get it out of the way.
It's ugly, so let's get this done. I don't even
Let's
want to
cry
talk
and be
about
done
this,
with it.
but I felt like I had to. Like my moral compass in the back of my head was like, you have to talk about how bad the Broncos are. And I'm like, I don't want to. And it's like, but someone should talk about it because they really are bad. And it's not fun to watch us play. As a fan, it's not fun to watch us play. Especially in the fourth quarter with terrible play calls and decisions and interceptions and you name it. But even for people that aren't fans of the Broncos, they're like, it's just not entertaining to watch an offense that literally cannot move the ball. Outside of Courtland Sutton and what Javonte Williams was there, it's been abysmal.
Hey, your kicker is doing a really good job.
Oh, good.
he's really
so
caring.
good.
He's got the team on his back.
I mean, we lead the NFL in penalties. We have, just an abysmal offense once we get down to the other side of the 50. It's been rough to be a Denver Broncos fan, and it's just rough to watch bad offenses in the NFL. And unfortunately, even a Russell Wilson-led offense is bad. They are coming out and saying now that I believe he has some shoulder injury or something of the sort that's affecting his deep ball, and so on and so forth. But who knows if that's the truth or an excuse. I did see someone predicted before they came out and said that they were going to come out and say that just to kind of protect his image, which I don't know what to believe right now, but everything hurts. It's not fun.
I think Russell Wilson's getting too much involved in his head. He's got all his endorsements, and he really just needs to go back to, he needs to take it to the Muhammad Ali method, and he just needs to be a warrior and be about football instead of making Subway commercials. But that's just me. That's just me.
You and this commercial theory. Dakota believes that anyone who does commercials ends up being a bad football player.
No. It's the decline. It's like they reach their apex and then they get like really famous. They start doing commercials and then boom, like Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, like Aaron Rodgers. State Farm has ruined all these guys. Like
Pat Mahomes though, he can do State Farm commercials. He's still clean.
He's an exception. You see, got Andy Reid on the most recent one.
Yeah,
drawing on people's
Andy Reid's gonna get his State Farm money. Yeah, it's hard to watch the Denver Broncos, man. It's just, and you want them to be good.
It's the worst game I've ever seen in my life on Thursday night, and I still scarred from it. And I don't know if I can watch another second, but I will because I have to.
Because you have to.
Yeah,
you're a good fan.
Oh my gosh, I have a lot in court. Luckily, the only thing for fantasy that's been good is Courtland Sutton. He's actually been targeted a crap ton and been very serviceable to good. And then of course our Our fantasy young running back got taken from us too early. Never forget Javante.
R.I.P.
But yeah,
Javonte,
super.
2022.
It makes me sad about him.
Super sad.
Anyway, let's get on to something else. Let's get off.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk about something else sad to go ahead and have us get our mind off of the Broncos, and that is
I'll get the Kleenexes.
that's Najee Harris. I mean, you had such high hopes for this guy this year. Everybody, based on his volume that he had last year, he was just putting up these awesome numbers. He was a rookie. He's really hit the sophomore slump, and I don't know if it's because of this injury that's kind of been bugging him the last few weeks, or if they're just saying, hey, we're going to not necessarily give you the same snap load. Snap counts in a free fall. I think this week he had 49% of snaps, and he had 11 attempts. And for him, that's just not good numbers. Early on in this year, a lot of people had concerns about his productivity, especially as entering his sophomore year, saying like, hey, if he's not going to get the same level of play time, is he going to still be able to produce the same numbers that he had? And it's looking like the answer is no. It's just sad because he's got such high potential, and I think he's such a cool player coming into the second season, but his game has been ugly.
Yeah. No, I would agree. It's been pretty hard to watch. I don't blame it all on the player.
No, I don't at all.
The situation, I think the offensive line, they didn't do anything to upgrade the offensive line, or not much anyways. And I think Mitch Trubisky hasn't been a big help. Obviously now they switched to Kenny Pickett, so we'll see how that goes. But they've also shown that they're willing to get other people involved, like Jalen Warren, which they weren't last year. They was all Najee Harris, is why he was drafted so high. So that is a concern that that they're willing to split up the work more, which they haven't shown in the past.
Yeah. It definitely has a pretty big hit on his value.
Yep.
Because the big thing was, hey, he's going to come in and he's going to be on the field all the time. He's going to get all these, he's going to get all these attempts,
and they're not scoring a lot of touchdowns, which that also hurts your value quite a bit too.
Their game was so ugly.
It was.
I would say, if I can even expand this to the Pittsburgh organization as a whole, like Kenny Pickett, I hope you figure out what's going on, because they just did not have a good game. The Bills just took him to town, took him to the cleaner.
Yep.
Yeah, what a brutal game though. In Kenny Pickett's defense just started. Like, if you had to pick a team to not start your rookie quarterback against, it's got to be. The Bills' defense.
Super Bowl contenders.
Probably the number one defense I wouldn't want my rookie quarterback starting against. Maybe Bill Belichick with his history of just destroying rookie quarterbacks, but I mean that's about it. In their defense, I think you're going to see the real Steelers offense come out next week, whatever that means under Kenny Pickett, because I think they have a decent matchup this week. I forget who exactly it is, but
I think they have an interdivisional matchup this week.
So they're going to play Tampa Bay, actually.
Oh, no, I was wrong, yeah.
Actually, that's a really tough defense, so I lied. That kind of sucks. And then they have Miami, who's a decent defense, and then Philly, who is another really good defense. So Kenny Pickett's got a tough run.
Hey, if he survives the gauntlet, though, he'll be fine. I got faith in him. I think he'll be okay.
And I hate to bring it to Najee Harris, but those are all really good run defenses too. Majority.
Yeah.
Of them. So he's going to
have a rough few weeks.
Yeah, have a rough few weeks here coming up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump. If you're good, I'm gonna jump into mine. This was a high-scoring offense here at the beginning of the year, but they came crashing down to earth, and they crashed hard. So I don't know if this is going to be necessarily indicative for the rest of the year, but I just wanted to highlight how bad they came crashing down. I'm talking about the Lions offense. So I believe they were the number 2 scoring offense.
I thought they were number 1.
Was it they number 1? Okay.
They were number 1.
Yeah, going into the week. They just got St. Brown back. They were living high because he had some explosive weeks before he got injured. Goff was looking great, blowing up stuff. They just came off of that huge shootout the week before. I think it was
Seattle.
Seattle, yeah. What was the score on that? 48,
Yeah, I think it was
something
like
like that.
48-30 something.
Scored over almost 100 points between the two teams, like this huge offensive explosion. And then they go into New England and just absolutely lay an egg. They do not even score a single point. They got completely shut out. So absolutely ugly. Jared Goff looked like he was ready to be traded again. He only passed for 218 yards, no score. St. Brown only had 4 catches, 18 yards. The fantasy was just ugly.
Jamal Williams was just essentially barely touched the
Yeah,
field. Like, it was weird, man.
yeah, barely touched the field. Goff threw a pick. It just looked absolutely ugly. I don't know if it was just the Patriots and how they schemed and how they took stuff away, which again, Bill's known for those games where he can just put something together that really kind of takes everything apart for you. So that could have been the case, but it was ugly is why it's listed here. So I don't anticipate that this is going to continue going forward. I think this is one that you can kind of write off a little bit, being in New England. But I just wanted to point it out because having them one offense and then having come back down to earth so hard really affected a lot of fantasy teams out there.
I agree. I think that's, they have so many players that people are really counting on, and they just didn't really do anything.
Right.
And
the explosions you've had from TJ Hawkinson, St. Brown, even Jamal Williams has some great weeks. Everybody's been getting a little bit of a share of it, and then just absolutely crash and burn. Kind of crazy.
I think Dan Campbell will recover, though. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think they'll recover. They have a bye week, and then they got Dallas and Miami, so I think they'll bounce back.
Although Dallas has been tearing people up on defense.
Yeah, it's true. Parsons is like looking like the defensive player of the year right now.
Oh, he's insane. He is not a human being. He is something else out there, just haunting quarterbacks' dreams. Freddy Krueger out there, man, just terrorizing people.
He looks like he's just enjoying it the entire time. That's the worst part.
Yeah, right. I'm sure he's having a great time. I would be.
He's really just having a great time.
Absolutely.
I think some of their ugly is the best way to describe the 3 things that we just discussed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get into a little less.
Yeah, this is just
worrisome.
bad.
Let's talk about. Yeah, this is just bad. Like, just they had one bad week, something like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter for mine because I think mine is a pretty season-wide thing. And I'm going to talk about the Colts offense again. A lot of fantasy potential, but not a lot of fantasy payoff. It's almost like this offense has just completely gone down without Jonathan Taylor. He kind of seemed like he was the dude who was pulling them along. Michael Pittman, hasn't really been involved with the games. He's coming off that injury. Really expecting a lot of high value from him this year, and so far he hasn't really gotten it. And I don't necessarily know if that's the organization. I don't think it's him. I think it's actually what I'm beginning to suspect is a curse that Peyton Manning put on Indiana when he left. And
luck was good though.
Yeah, and then he, got injured gruesomely and then retired early. So, first got him. Jacoby Brissett looks completely different playing for the Cleveland Browns as opposed to playing for them. Carson Wentz looks completely different with the Commanders. Philip Rivers went to the Colts and it was so bad he decided to retire. And now it looks like Matt Ryan is probably going to retire at Colts. So I don't know what Peyton Manning did. I think that the owner of the Indianapolis Colts needs to call him and say, hey, we'll give you whatever you want in order to remove this curse. So that they can recover, because I think right now they're just, willing to try anything to move forward.
Yeah, it's been rough, and hopefully it does get better and they figure some stuff out. But I think it's a struggle for sure.
Who knows, and who knows what it is. So
I personally think it's the offensive line. They're supposed to have a really good offensive line, but man, it seems like every drop back, Matt Ryan's getting absolutely killed. And I did see a statistic saying that Matt Ryan is actually, when he's not under pressure, is a really good quarterback, but he has no athletic ability to escape. And if he's under pressure, he really becomes a below average quarterback pretty quick. So I really think that's their biggest issue right now. They haven't been able to establish a run like they did in the past, and he's just been under fire constantly. So I don't know how that changes, and if they scheme stuff differently or they get the run game going more, hopefully. But yeah, I think that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest reasons you're seeing the lack of output from Matt Ryan.
I think anything at this point is better than nothing. So
the other thing that's worth noting actually is that they're actually 8th in passing yards. I'm just looking this up right now in total, which really is not bad. So people might be thinking like, well, what are you guys talking about? They have 7 interceptions, which leads the NFL. So when they do start moving the ball, nobody gets in the end zone. They also only have 5 touchdowns, which is like 10.
It's a bad ratio, real bad ratio. Yeah.
Like 10th to the bottom, so I guess like 20th, whatever, 22nd for touchdowns, and then they lead the league in interceptions. So I mean, they're not scoring, they're turning the ball over, and those are 2 things that you can't do. So what I will say though is the yards actually, I was kind of surprised when I pulled that up, and they should give you some hope. Yeah.
I think Matt Ryan's been sacked almost the most this year, if not the top. So
I'm actually adding it up right now, and he's been sacked 21 times over the last 5 games. Yeah. And that means that he's taking an average of 4.
Guess who else is tied with him?
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And both of these quarterbacks are good quarterbacks, but they've thrown the most picks. Both of them have, and they are struggling. Both teams are struggling, and it's because they've been so under pressure. At least that's what I'm seeing when I watch the games and from some of the statistics that I've heard. So
I agree. I think the sack comparison is a great segue into the next one, though.
Yeah. Actually, you teed me up pretty well.
Yeah, I think you did a great job with that.
So speaking of the Rams offense, Matthew Stafford, I want to talk to him about the whole offense in general, that they have been bad. Same thing with we talked about here with the Colts offense. This is a Super Bowl offense. They looked amazing last year. They went all in again. They signed Bobby Wagner. They brought a lot of people back. They signed Allen Robinson, who's this big contract. Everything was looking hunky dory, and then they come out and they look terrible. It's not just been 1, 2, or 3 weeks. We're in week 5, and they just can't get it together. It seems like Matthew Stafford's out of sync. They only use 2 of their options in the passing game. It feels like to me when I watch it, Matthew Stafford drops back and he's immediately under pressure and just panic hits the same button over and over again, Madden, and throws it to Cooper Kupp. Which, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad strategy.
If you're gonna hit a button,
it is a good button. It's either him or Tyler Higbee. He's got 2 buttons he hits, but. Yeah. As an offense in total, if you don't get other people involved at least a little, and I mean like not involved at all, you're gonna struggle. And the other thing is a big thing with the offense is they can't run the ball. It doesn't matter who it is Henderson or Akers. Akers has looked a little bit better recently, but they just can't run. Their offensive line is just not opening up lanes for either of them. So I think those aren't playable. Allen Robinson looks like he needs to be dropped. He's getting 2 or 3 targets a week, not involved at all. So as far as fantasy is concerned, I wouldn't start Stafford. I would drop Robinson, start Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee, and hope it gets better. But
would you try
other than that,
for somebody maybe?
Nobody's. I tell you what, nobody's gonna take him. Yeah,
he actually went on the trade block in one of our leagues, and I don't think anybody's made an offer on him at all. And it's a dynasty league too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a dynasty league. So I mean, he's average. He gets 5 targets a week, but he's not connecting either. It's not only the targets, but it's been terrible. It's been really bad.
I think people are just tired, tired of him not panning out. And, he's a good receiver. It's just rough situations, kind of like you said, the O-line's collapsing. It's not giving Matt Stafford time.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, one thing about it is that they still throw the ball, a decent amount, which is definitely good news. So hopefully they can figure out this whole, passing attack and things will change. But at the moment, it's horrible. Don't get me wrong; they're very inefficient, but they're still like the 10th ranked offense as far as how much they pass the
Yeah.
ball, which is interesting in and of
Yeah.
itself that they've been bad, right? Especially Allen Robinson.
So
Yeah.
They still continue to do it.
Well,
My
Stafford's
question-
had 7 picks, has been one of the biggest, and been sacked, tied for the most. I think those are the 2 biggest things that stick out to me for why they've been so bad.
my question, I guess, and before we move on, my question is do you think Odell Beckham, there's rumors about him re-signing with the Rams, things like that. Do you think that that'll revitalize the offense, or do you think that that's not going to have any change on
I
it?
think he's going to come. I think he's going to choose somebody that has a better chance of making Super Bowl. And right now, the Rams don't look like it, in my opinion. I think he's going to choose something else.
I think he's bluffing. I don't think he's going to come back at all. I think he's
Maybe.
Just yeah.
Real quick, and then we'll move on. Allen Robinson's fantasy points, real quick. Week 1, 2.2. Week 2, 15.3. Week 3, 4.3. Week 4, 2.7. Week 5, 4.2. So he's had 4
not
weeks.
a good time.
4 weeks. 4 weeks under 5 points. So good luck trying to get anything for that. I have him in a couple leagues. I am officially cutting him and dropping him. So just FYI, putting it out there in the universe.
I'm cut off.
And if you're
Done.
a believer and you want to
I'm
go trade for him,
done.
you can trade for him for almost nothing, which is the upside.
Yeah. Let me know. I'll trade you for
Yeah.
anything and everything.
I'll give you whatever.
Yeah. No shit. Go ahead.
No, for sure. No, now let's talk about an offense that doesn't even try to throw the ball because they know that they're bad at it. And this is going to be Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons.
Hold on. You said they're bad at throwing the ball. What are they good at? Being bad at something would imply that they have to be good at something to begin with.
No, you can be bad at everything. They're just
I don't
bad
think
at
that they're
throwing
good
the
at
ball.
everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're good at anything else. They're bad at
Just
throwing
bad.
the football. They are the second lowest passing attempts total in the NFL, just above the Chicago Bears, who don't throw the ball at all. Famously, refuse to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, it's been rough to watch Arthur Smith as a play caller. If you have Kyle Pitts, if you have Drake London, who started off with a hot start. Now, a few weeks ago, I did tell you to sell high on Drake London. Just want to throw that out there, worth noting. But he came crashing back down to earth. And same with Kyle Pitts, has never even been in this guy this year. I mean, it was super high in the draft value, but it's been terrible ever since. And because the bottom line is that they just don't throw it. And even when they do, it is not very effective. And this is a team, by the way, real quick, they are number 2 in yards allowed on defense. So it is not like they shouldn't be throwing the ball. And they're losing games. They get into shootouts because they basically
what else is going to happen? What else is going to happen? Yeah.
and they also don't throw the ball even when they're in these games. They just find different crazy ways to get the ball to their running backs for big plays and whatnot, which is wild.
That's really wild.
So I think what's happening is that Arthur Smith is in a fantasy football league this year. And he wanted Kyle Pitts and Drake London and all. And he says, hey, guys, I have these on my team. Just give it to me. His league wouldn't do it. Somebody else has them, so he's just tanking the season to prove a point.
Out of spite. Yeah.
That's what I think is happening, but what do I know?
Right.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
It's like they made Arthur Smith to call 80s football. Like all he wants to do is hand the ball off to 6 different people.
You're gonna run a flea flicker again. Again.
You're not in Super Bowl 1. Can we update our offensive play calling here? Unbelievable.
I love it.
Well, and they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to start throwing the ball at least some. Quite honestly, I would be really interested personally. I'd love to see him throw Desmond Ridder out there and just see what happens. But
what could go worse? Yeah, what could get worse than what's going on right now? So you might need to write Arthur Smith a letter.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions for 57% completion percentage and 900 yards just isn't going to cut it. we are 5 weeks into the season. 900 yards. That's not even 200 yards a game.
No.
Nope.
Thus, you're playing in the wrong generation for NFL. You just are.
That's
you're
why
not going to win that way. Not consistently.
Mariota experience did not work anywhere else. That's why.
There's a reason why. I think we've hit the cap on how much bad stuff that we could do. I think it's time we get some positivity.
Positivity. Talk about the good.
Okay.
Let's go.
Dakota, can we say yours for last?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I think all of ours are great, and I think the theme of the week is running.
Yeah. I really like yours, Ethan. Actually, I've been thinking about it more recently, and actually, you go ahead and talk about yours first.
I want to open us up first on that one.
Yeah. So Josh Jacobs last week had a breakout week where he blew up. I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but it was over 100 rushing yards. I mean, if someone wants to look it up for me, it was insane. This week, right? I was sitting here. We're kind of going through the power or the Excel sheet here, and I'm like watching him blow up again. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, we should have known this was going to happen. Josh McDaniels is a offensive genius who loves to run the ball. Actually, despite all of the reputation he has for the passing game, and Josh Jacobs has looked like the best part of that offense, including Devontae Adams. Quite frankly, when he's had the ball in his hands, and this is kind of like if you could get the Patriots' old committee running backs back when they used to have, Damian Harris and James White back there, right? If you could get both in one guy, right, and get all the fantasy points for that, you get the touchdowns, you get the red zone work, you get the pass catching. That's what Josh Jacobs is. He is the whole committee in one guy in that same offensive style.
I got it pulled up.
If I can throw the stats, yeah. So last week he had 28 attempts, 144 rushing yards, 5.14 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and then he also had 6 targets with 5 receptions for 31 yards. I mean, that's pretty significant. And then this week, 154 yards and 7.33 yards per carry. I mean, his yards per carry just shot up through the roof. 1 touchdown. He's got 5 targets for 5 catches, 39 yards. I mean, he's just a machine. He's an absolute animal on the field.
I mean, he just looks fantastic. And he didn't do these against bad defenses, guys. Kansas City spent 2 first-round draft picks on the defense to revamp it. They've done a pretty good job of playing defenses. They've actually won more so through that than just their crazy explosive offense. The Denver Broncos, despite all their offensive troubles, have had a great defense all year. They've had a great defense the last few years. I mean, it's been consistently good, and that's who he did this against. I mean, this isn't just him picking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are terrible in general. I mean, he did this against playoff teams. And so it's worth noting, and I don't think it's going away. He is coming onto a bye this next week. He's not going to be available in any of your leagues, but if you have someone that's silly enough to want to sell high on him right now, I would definitely be a buyer in this market.
Yeah.
You might even be able to, if he has a bad week, go ahead and snatch him up, and maybe somebody thinks that he's had some good weeks and then that was just a fluke. I would try to snatch him up if somebody was crazy enough if he has one bad week, because I think he's just going to go straight back.
Yeah, the thing I'll say about Josh Jacobs is the talent itself has never been questioned. And from what I've seen him play before, I actually was thinking about somebody I wanted to target. I was just really put off by all the noise is the best way to say it in the Raiders camp, coming from actually Josh McDaniels a little bit himself, and then coming from all the beat writers, and then piled along with other fantasy analysts saying that it's going to be a committee system. It's going to be a committee system. It's going to be a committee system. It's something that we got to remember, and I'm telling myself this, is if the talent is there, and it's undeniable, like it is in Jacobs, and we've seen this in the past with him. He's had games where he's had 3 touchdowns and had these blow-up games. The thing that's always held him back is not being involved in the passing game, and that was more of a coaching decision. He has had the skill talent to do it. But now that he's not in a committee because of the talent and what he's showing on the field, and he's getting the passing work. It's just amazing. So it's something to remember, I guess, for draft season is, keep in mind the talent. And sometimes, yeah, there could be a committee, but he can blow through that committee pretty quick if the talent's there.
Yeah, we always we hunt for opportunities, right? Especially during draft season. Like, okay, who's going to get this many targets, whatever else. But sometimes we do forget talent also generates opportunity because coaches see it and they go, you know what, I've got to get him the ball more. And Jacobs is making a solid argument in a contract year, by the way, that, hey, get me the ball and good things will happen.
He looked really amazing tonight. It seemed like he would get 6 to 7, 8 carries and carry like a pile of guys with him to get 2 or 3 extra yards.
He looked
Yeah,
agile. He
really
looked
good.
strong.
Driven.
He looked fast. I mean, you name it. I mean, he just looked good.
Very disappointed in myself. One thing I'll say, and we can, I really want to talk about this like in our mid-season review, but to look back at the so-called dead zone running backs, because I think this year especially,
You should have
I think
drafted all dead zone running backs this year.
I think we should talk. Let's not get into that now, but I really think that kind of crazy this year of the ones that did come out and something to look into at least for the future. So,
True.
Totally worth bringing up. Yeah.
For sure. I'll jump into mine because I want to save Dakota's great one here last. I want to do a shout out for Ramondre Stevenson. So, unfortunately, there was a injury that kind of catapulted him to this. He was showing some good success the last couple of weeks, really starting to get a lot more snap count. Taking over the majority of the backfield from Damian Harris. And then what happened this week is, unfortunately, and again, I wouldn't wish injury upon anybody, but Harris did get injured. So that opened the door wide open for Ramondre Stevenson, and he sure took advantage. So he ended up with 25 carries, 161 yards, 2 receptions, and 14 yards. And actually, based off his previous usage the last few weeks, the receptions are actually low, and that was because they were up by so much. You winning 29-0, you're going to get a lot more run than you are going to get passing. But I think that'll change in the future. But he's very talented back. They have an offense that really wants to run. He has been, like I said, involved in the passing game the last few weeks. Getting a lot of receptions, being that third down back. So now you're going to get literally a back that's going to get the full workload. They may bring in somebody to be more of a spell, but he's going to be a solid RB1, I would say, as long as Harris is out. I don't know. We didn't bring that up in the injury. I don't know how long Harris is going to be out, actually, though. I was going to try to look that up. Yeah, but I just wanted to shout out because he had, he had a kind of his breakout game this week. So
it was a coming out party for Ramondre Stevenson this week, and like Josh Jacobs, like we mentioned, is that it was for good reason. He's a very talented running back, and we expect him to be.
The good news too is even with the injury, if it's not serious and he's coming back next game, it does seem like he's getting the majority of the work, even a split. And the more important thing, he's getting all the third down work, which is in fantasy. You want fantasy football. You'd like to in between the tackles, but you want the third down work and the goal line work are the two most important things for running backs.
Yeah, and don't forget that the Patriots put Damian Harris on the trade block to see what they could get for him before the season. So they like Stevenson a lot. That's the reason why you do that is because you like the backup. So
I think this has been it's been coming for a while, and I think just the injury like you're saying, it catapulted it further. He's so skilled. He's just so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, are you guys ready for mine?
Yeah, do it to
it.
Okay.
All right, so I big on running backs today, especially these young rookies. I'm going to highlight one, but I'm going to talk about two, and that's the Jets running backs. I mean, both of them were just on point, and it's not like they were really playing a slouch defense. They were playing Miami. We got Michael Carter, who he had 42% of the snaps, 10 attempts, 21 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. And so he had that, became pretty fantasy relevant simply from the fact that he was getting that goal line work. And then we had the big guy, and that would be Breece Hall. And it was it's the moment that everybody has almost been waiting for, where Breece Hall has been slowly getting worked up, and he finally did what we've been waiting for him to do. He had 69% of snaps, which for a rookie in the first 5 games is pretty good. Every week he's just been working up his load. He's been working up his attempts, and he finally peaked out at 97 rushing yards. He had a 1 touchdown. They got him involved in the passing game, but he just looked really good. And I think the best thing is that he just looked comfortable. This is what the Jets drafted him to do. This is what they wanted, and now they finally seem like they're fully committing him to the role. And he just looks so good doing it. So I think he's one of those players of the week that people have been waiting to pop off, especially Ethan, and he finally has.
Yes, no, absolutely. He's just a fantastic athlete who is getting more and more time on the field, although still in a committee and still getting some splits.
He's number 7 in PPR right now.
Yeah, he's just a very talented running back who can catch passes, who can run the ball really well, who has a nose for the end zone actually in the red zone, despite Carter being used for some of that as well. And what is quite frankly turning into a reasonably high-powered offense, and if they would throw the ball to Garrett Wilson a little more, it'd probably be even more of a high-powered offense, but we'll let Eli rant about that here in a second now that I brought it up.
Yeah, no doubt. The reason why he's going to be so valuable is because they don't want Zach Wilson to throw the ball is one of the biggest things. So they're going to let them run it and run it and run it and run it, and then do dump offs to Breece Hall. Because
somebody's a little bitter right now.
Yeah, because Zach Wilson doesn't know how to throw it to his 2 best wide receivers, breakout wide receivers, in Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. He just loves himself some Corey Davis. Can't get enough. Because why not throw it to your 6-year wide receiver that hasn't done anything when you have 2 breakout wide receivers? I mean, it just makes complete sense.
He knows that Corey Davis is circling the drain. He's just trying to get him some pity points, and then they'll go back to the rest of them.
Eli, I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. Are you rooting for them to bring back Joe Flacco? Is that what I'm hearing?
Hey, he's elite. What can you say? Bring him back. Let him lead the team. I don't care about Jets winning. It's not what I'm about. I'm about getting 50 to 60 pass attempts a game and just peppering these wide receivers. That's what I'm about. And Breece Hall could still eat with his 10 to 12 dump offs a game too with Joe Flacco. Like bring back Joe Flacco. I'm gonna start a petition.
Yes, we'll start talking to the coaching staff. I'm sure Robert Saleh will listen. Right away. So
he's elite.
Yeah, after all the success he's had with Zach Wilson, I think he's probably gonna just tell you to see yourself at the door.
It's not because of Zach Wilson. It's in spite of Zach Wilson.
It's with Zach Wilson, okay? It's not they're dragging him by his collar.
I do really hope
I'm not saying that
Zach Wilson down and goes like, listen, we know that you're bad, and that's okay, but we need you to throw to people who are good, okay? Like we do. We need you to do that because even if you're bad, they'll make you look good, and then other people will stop hating you.
Carson Wentz,
yes,
you can be the Carson Wentz. Just give it to your playmakers and stop being an idiot.
These guys were high draft picks, Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, obviously. Super high draft pick, especially Garrett Wilson. Just throw it in their general direction. Let's try that for a game or 2.
Hey.
Let's see what happens.
Nobody tells Zach Wilson how to be Zach Wilson.
Yeah, no doubt. Otherwise, he will.
Otherwise, he would have been a lot better.
Yeah, otherwise he'll bang your mom. Don't push him too far. I've seen it.
All right, and with that.
Let's end on that note. I love it. That's a perfect spot. Thanks for staying in, all the fantasy footballers or fantasy play callers. Whoops.
Wow.
I wonder what other shows I watch about fantasy football. Fantasy play callers. Thank you for joining in. Thanks for being a part of it. It's been a fun episode, and
we'll be back next week. Good luck on your pickups this week. Hope you get what you need.
That's right.
Yeah.
May your bids be $1 over the next closest person.
Yep.
Or you might get your players for free. I think
always and forever. Yeah.
Peace.
All right. Thanks, guys.